Good morning, Photo Ones. I'm going to quickly record this for you. Hopefully I can get it to upload. I'm having troubles here this morning. I actually have a sub for me today, so I just wanted to go over what is happening this Monday to help her out a little bit. So I do have some reminders on here for the 25th through the 29th for you to make sure that you have your signed contract when you come to class if you haven't already turned it in, and that you've paid your fee in person or online. And if you are struggling with the online portion, or if there's any issues with this, please let me know, okay? Bring your SLR film camera if you have one to class. No digital this week. We'll be focused on the SLR. Bring your folders with you with your handouts to class. And if you bring your ID, that will make it much quicker for us to check the cameras out to you while you are using them, because we will check them out. So today you will be going over exposure again with a PowerPoint, which I'll go over with you quickly, and it's in Schoology so you can look at it. You'll get to practice on a kind of cool manual mode game that's online. You can practice on it anytime you want, but it should help you understand a little bit more. And then we're going to watch our second video, this time on shape and rule of thirds, which you will also be putting into practice with our film photo shoot this week. And then an overview of the assignments for home and in class. So I will try to get that all done and quick so I can get it for the ready here. So let's click on this. So Monday's introduction to exposure. So what is exposure? So we went over this in class last week when we were looking at the cameras. So in digital photography, which is going to be similar than film, exposure is a unit of measurement for the total amount of light permitted for each to reach the electronic sensor during the process of taking the photo. It's the same for film. It's just talking about digital, but it's instead of the image sensor, it is touching the film. So basically, it's how much light you are letting in the camera through the shutter and the aperture in the lens. All right. So you can kind of look at this and study. The shorter this aperture stays open, the longer the shutter stays open. So those are your shutter speed scale. And you can see there's a lot more than what we have on our camera, because our camera does not go up this high. I think the highest our camera goes is 1,000, 1/1000th on the Pentax. Okay. But you can go lower with your shutter speed. Types of exposure. So this would be a correct exposure. This is overexposed, so it has too much light. And this is underexposed, which means it's too dark. So when a photo is underexposed, there's not enough light and the image is too dark. This can happen from too fast of a shutter speed or too small of an aperture. So what do? Let in more light with your shutter or your aperture. So that's why we tend to use a tripod when we're in a low light situation. When a photo is overexposed, there's too much light let in and the image is too bright. This can happen from a slow shutter speed or too large of an aperture. So what should you do? You should let in less light with your shutter or your aperture, so your details are lost in it. And these are all difficult to print, so that's why we work really hard to come up with a correct exposure, because it's the best to print in the darkroom. You have the least difficulty. You'll enjoy it the most if you have a correct exposure negative. An image that has the correct amount of balanced detail in the shadows and the highlights are easy areas when it is properly exposed. This means it has the correct combination of aperture and shutter speed settings. So this week, it says next week because I was thinking next week when I was actually getting this prepared. But this week we will be working on taking photos with our film cameras and having the correct shutter speed. So again, it's very simple. You will use your light meter to do this. So I just want you to remember that as we go over it. This is just some typical shutter speeds that you would use in combination with each other with your f-stops, okay? So that's just another quick review of that for you. Let's look again at January 25th through the 29th. Okay, so this is a practice game that you get to do, and you have to click up here to actually get to it. So I want you to practice with this. So you get to change your aperture and your shutter speed and your ISO to maybe do 400 because that's what our film will be. And then you can take a picture and you can see if it's any good or not. And obviously I had very bad settings. I didn't even really pay attention. I just took a shot and to see what I got, and 1/1000 at a 5.6 at a 400 ISO is very, very underexposed. So I want you to practice with this game for a bit and try to get a hang of what you need to do to get a correct exposure so that you'll be better prepared for when we take pictures next week, okay? And then let's go back to Schoology. And then there's a video for shape and rule of thirds, and we'll be watching that because that will be one of your focuses for this week's assignment. And I will let the sub show that to you. And then explain the step-by-step process for loading and unloading film from a 35mm camera. So this is your asynchronous assignment. So this is due on Friday, and you should be working on it this week. Watch the following video and write step-by-step instructions for how to load and then unload a 35mm camera with film. Please use numbers, bullet points, or a paragraph form with first, next, and so forth to explain your process. Please include the correct terminology from the camera parts when describing the process. You should be able to find this information in the video and the handouts on the camera that we did in class last week. So the point of this is, and here is your video, is to have a pretty good idea of how to do this. So if you watch the video and you make these step by step, you'll have a pretty good idea already of how to load and unload. So it's just reinforcing some of the stuff that we went over and preparing you for this week. So you will need to do this. I recommend you do it before you come to class if you can. So your video is right here.
This is a real B&H customer story. Check.
You have to skip the ads, but that's your video. So you'll watch the video. You can watch it as many times as you need to, and then you can create your own document and add it. I will actually try to add a document. I was trying to add one last night and it would not let me. So I have a template document. I'll try to add again and see if I can add it for you. Other than that, if it's not there, just create your own document and you can submit that to me, okay? If you have any questions, of course, you can email me and ask. And I will see you hopefully this week in class. So have a great week.